Alright guys, so it's still Squonk week on my channel Geekay. So today I want to talk about different squonking RDAs. Now in 2016 I first had my first experience with a squonk mod, the Kangaroo drip box. If you guys remember that, some of you probably owned it as well. It was very interesting, but it didn't quite get me the proper feel that I needed for a squonk mod. So 2016, I did my initial list of squonk mods and squonk RDAs, and it was very difficult early 2016 to get a lot of useful information on squonk RDAs. Basically, some of the companies included a squonk pin, but they didn't mention it at all on their website in the description. Barely mentioned, and lots of people didn't quite understand what squonking was. 2017, everyone is just churning out and throwing squonk RDAs in your face like bam. So everything is a squonk RDA. If it's an RDA, it has to have a bottom feeding pin, and therefore you have a squonking RDA. So definitely much easier in 2017 to find squonking RDAs. Now the last time I compared or showed you lots of different RDAs was in my video about the Kangaroo drip box, because I didn't like the included RDA. So I showed you like about 6 different types of RDAs that you can use as a replacement for the Kangaroo drip box. Today I no longer own a Kangaroo drip box. I actually sold it away. I kind of almost gave up on squonking maybe towards the middle of 2016, towards the end of 2016, until I found out that there's so many other squonking options out there, squonking RDAs. So then I started to collect some of them. I still have the older squonking RDAs. But in this video I want to show you both the older ones, which still work pretty damn well, and the newer squonking RDAs, right? So many different squonking RDAs being pushed out today. Some of them are good, but most of them just because you put a bottom feeding pin doesn't make it a good squonking RDA. So I want to show you some of the stuff that I have. It's not a complete conclusive list, because some of the older squonk RDAs that I showed you in my older videos are either sold it off or gave it away, or sometimes the clones I even just threw it away because I just found better stuff. But anyway, let's take a look at the different squonk RDAs that I have to show you today. Alright guys, so as you can see, I have lots of different RDAs to show you today. They're all going to be squonking RDAs, or squonkable RDAs. And I have sort of figured out how I want to go about explaining this, but there's just a lot of stuff to show you. So my idea was to show you single coil squonk RDAs versus dual coil squonk RDAs. Also, the difference, also show you 22mm RDAs, because lots of squonking RDAs are going to be 22mm. I'm going to show you the larger diameter ones, for example, the 24mm. However, as I said, there's lots of stuff here, so I may go off on a tangent a little bit, but I hope you understand. I'm not going to be talking about the price. I'm not going to be saying the price of the individual RDAs, because that's going to confuse me even more, but I will put it up on the video as you're watching, the exact price. Some of them are going to be authentics, the others are going to be clones, but they all are squonking RDAs. As for the clones, usually I buy the clones when I want to test them out. Sometimes the authentics are way too difficult to get. The only place you can get them are from flippers, who tend to sell them like twice the retail price or even 3 times the retail price, and I just do not want to do that right now, so I usually get the clones to test them out first. So the earlier video that I've done for squonking RDAs, that was specifically for the Kangaroo drip box, because lots of people didn't like the Kangaroo drip box, the RDA they came with. That was my first squonking setup, and some of the RDAs that I showed you there are also going to be here, and some of them are no longer here because I've either sold them or I have given them away. But I have a complete list of all the stuff that you see here and more on my site at gkvapes.com. You will find the link to that right here, right? So just go and check it out. A full list of all the different squonk RDAs you can use for affordable squonk RDAs. And also I have a separate list of squonk mods. So if you're a squonker, you want to check out the squonk mods list and also the squonk RDAs list. So first, let's talk about some single coil RDAs, right? So this one right here that I have, the Bomber Tech Firefly, this is a really good single coil RDA. Comes with an Ultim cap, as you can see here. Now, the only problem with the Firefly is that the airflow is kind of weird. The airflow comes in like this at an angle, and your squonk pin is actually underneath the coil right there, and the squonk pin will actually pump some juice into the two pretty large juice wells, as you can see here, right? One here and the other one here. Let me give you an idea how that works, since this one is all wicked up. So squonk, and you can see the juice wells actually filling up, and the airflow is controlled by the cap itself. So you can shut or open the airflow on this side, on the other side as well. So this one is a bit weird. It's a 22mm RDA. I've actually not done a full review on this one yet, but the review will be coming up. And you have lots of different options for the so-called drip tip part on top. So you can actually take this out. In the box, you actually get a black one and also a white short drip tip, or drip tip add-on, whatever you want to call it. You can just take this out if you don't want to use it, and just get my point, right? And you can just use the Ultim cap itself. So this one I'm still in the process of testing out. So far it looks good, the Firefly by Bomber Tech. Flavor is good, and you can see I've actually closed off most of the airflow. And if I put it actually wide open like this, not bad as well. But as I said, the airflow is a little bit weird on this one. It kind of I don't know, makes up for it in other ways with the flavor. I cannot quite put my finger on it, but the flavor is not bad. And of course, you can't talk about single coil RDAs if you do not mention the ultimate single coil RDA, which is the Headley RDA. This has been one of my all-time favorite single coil RDAs. I never had the Nano RDA except for a clone, and I never really liked it that much. But the Headley is definitely a mainstay single coil squonking RDA for me. You can use large coils here, 3mm, 3.5, even 4mm, but it's going to be a single coil only. It's going to be a clamp style deck. Now the profile is very short, as you can see. The airflow is adjusted by the two airflow holes you see here and on the other side as well. And what makes the Headley really unique is that it tries to bring in the airflow inside as much as possible before it actually touches your coil. You get what I mean? So without the pores here and without the airflow holes going through the pores, your air actually needs to travel a much longer distance from the side to the coils. And I think because of this design right here, the Headley is really very good flavor chasing squonk RDA. Definitely one of my favorite, all-time favorite squonking RDAs. This is the authentic, but you can also get a clone for very cheap price, and it works just as good as the authentic. Check the link that I mentioned. You can also get the link in the description box below to my ultimate squonking RDAs list. Alright, next in my lineup for single coil, I would show you this one. This is the Octave Serpent BF. This is actually, you can use it for single coil or dual coil. This is really cheap as well. It has some issues. I don't really like the way this one is designed. To get the top cap off can be a really big challenge when the O-rings are super tight in there. Let me try to get it off to show you what I mean. Alright, if that doesn't work, the design is actually such a way that the rest of it just fits into the bottom part. So I can just push this out. There you go. That's so much easier. So the Octave Serpent, again, you can use a dual coil build in, and I didn't actually wash this one out. Alright, so I have a single coil build in here, and I like it as a single coil RDA. Comes with a silicone plug, so you can take that out and you can use a dual coil build. The build deck is very easy to work with. Now, when you're using a single coil build, you can just put your one lead on this post hole and the other one here. Makes it very easy. If you're going to do a dual coil, you can try to do this as well on both sides, or you can get one lead to go all the way to the outer post hole right here. Now when you do that, some of your wicking space is going to be taken out by the lead, so you probably have to squeeze it back. Now, as far as the airflow is concerned, it is pretty adjustable for a single coil, as you can see. You have 3 airflow slots right here, so you can just put it, match it up with a single coil. And this is the part of the design that's a little bit weird for me. It works, but it's just a little bit weird. You actually have to do your bill with this part, and then you got to push it back in like this, and then you got to adjust your airflow. When your airflow ring or the top cap is on, you're going to hold the drip tip itself and adjust the airflow open or close like that, right? There are knurlings right here, but it's not that easy to get a grip of the top part, so it's mostly going to be holding the drip tip to open or close your airflow. So this, I would consider it as a very good single coil RDA in that price range. Definitely not my favorite squonking RDA. It's nowhere near the Headley, of course, but it's just another option, 22mm as well. And next we go to this one right here, the OMYA Wasp Nano. I have a complete review for the OMYA Wasp Nano. This thing is super cheap, just $17 if I'm not mistaken. I did a giveaway for the Wasp Nano as well, but the quality, you can expect it to be a $17 RDA quality, especially with the O-rings over time, but it's definitely worth the money. And you can see it borrows a lot from the concept of the Headley or other similar type of squonking RDAs. It just tries to get your airflow in as much as possible before hitting the coils, and this is going to be a single coil build as well. And because the posts themselves are so huge, they take up most of the unwanted space right here, leaving only mostly the middle area here for your vapor, and therefore you're going to get really good flavor. And the profile, it's a short profile as well, but the cons of this one is that you only get this ultim cap. As far as I know, even today, there are no other accessories for the OMYA Wasp Nano that you can find, and you have to make do with this ultim cap. This part here is a 510 size, so you can put a 510 drip tip in there if you don't like it to be too short. And the airflow adjustment is basically like this with the top cap, so it's a very simple design. You can get a pretty restricted vape, but definitely not a mouth to lung vape with this one. So if you cannot afford the authentic Headley and you don't want to consider clone Headley, you may want to consider the Wasp Nano by OMYA. Also on that list, as I said, check the link in the description box, or go to geekayvapes.com for the complete price, specs, and also most of the stuff that you see here and other stuff that I don't really have to show you today. So this one, single coil RDA, also 22mm. You can see the squonking pin at the bottom. And next we got to talk about this one, the Armor Mods RDA, and this one is a clone as well. The authentic Armor RDA, it's really difficult to get, almost impossible to get. You can probably get it from flippers, and they probably are going to sell this to you for about $300 or 300 euros. Do not pay that price. The Armor RDA, this one that I have here, the clone, you can try this out. This is a YTFK clone. It's really good. And the Armor RDA, the only thing good about it is the airflow, as you can see here. But you look at the build deck, there's nothing really revolutionary for the Armor RDA to be paying $300 for the Armor RDA. Even the clone has got a good build quality. Now the thing with the Armor is that most people are going to be using it for a single coil setup. Comes with this chamber reducer. It's a bit hard to take out right now, but you know what I mean. So you can do a dual coil build if you want, but you look at it, this is most probably a single coil. Lots of people are going to be using it for a single coil RDA. Chamber reducer, and the posts are screwed down, so you can use flatter wire, but you notice that the holes are not really that huge right here, so you're limited. You can probably use Clapton wire, 26 gauge core Clapton wire, but probably nothing bigger than that. The airflow for the Armor RDA, it's well, I'll show you, right? You have to loosen the airflow lock or AFC lock ring right here, and then you got to basically get the airflow to whatever you want to, right? These are the parts right here. So I'm going to, for example, if I want the airflow to be wide open, I've got to first line it up, push it back in, and now you see the airflow is wide open, and then I'm going to lock the airflow using the AFC lock like that, right? Only 2 airflow slots. So although there's a chamber reducer here, you do get airflow, a little bit airflow coming from the back. Now the authentic OMYA Mods RDA, OMYA RDA has lots of different accessories, some with only a single coil airflow or 1 airflow slot, different types of caps, etc. It is a very good single coil RDA, and the airflow definitely gives you a very smooth vape, but it's not worth $300. If you can actually get it from the modder themselves, I think it's probably going to cost you about $120 or something like that. But that's almost impossible to do. I've been trying to get an authentic OMYA Mods RDA for months now, and I was not able to do it. So I'm pretty happy with this clone actually, and if the chance comes up to get an authentic, I probably will, because I've had a good experience with this, but again, not at the flipper price of $300 or $400. This is also a 22mm RDA with a short profile, as you can see here, and this is how the Delrin drip tip looks like, right? So you do have an adapter to use your 510 standard drip tips in this YTFK clone. Alright, so a few more single coil RDAs to show you. This one's going to be the No Name RDA. This is also a clone because again, the No Name plug-in, that's the name of this Squonk RDA. It's very, very hard for me to get. Okay, this is a European made RDA, an Italian RDA, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So it's also meant for a single coil build. This one, very obvious, right? And you can see it's really a simple design, just 1 piece top cap. The clone actually comes with the Ultim drip tip, and you notice the airflow. You have 1 slightly wider airflow right here, and 1 small airflow. I think it's going to be about 2mm airflow right here to get a mouth to lung vape if you want to with this single coil RDA. This is the airflow slot, so you just line it up like this if you want a mouth to lung vape, and then you can still adjust the opening of the actual airflow itself, and the same for the other wider airflow, as you can see here. So what's unique about this particular Squonk RDA is the airflow, the way it tries to channel your airflow with this peak insulator right here. It tries to sort of like push the airflow up, if you know what I mean. So the air comes in through here, and then it gets pushed up to your coils themselves. So your coils have to be built in such a way that it's right on top here, and you would wick your cotton to both sides right here, and your juice will squonk out of the squonking hole in the middle and fill up the entire juice well and saturate your cotton. This one also very, very unique airflow. For a single coil RDA, definitely good. 22mm again. The authentic cost definitely more than 120 euros. Now the clone is very, very affordable. The build quality is also very, very good. So this is another thing that I'm testing out, and I would say that I get a decent vape from this one, but still doesn't match for a single coil RDA. A Squonking RDA still doesn't match the Headley in my opinion, and neither does the so-called YTFK OMYA clone. The Headley is just in a class of its own. This right here is the Shift RDA, also a clone. Also, I'm just testing it out. Very, very low profile, super low profile, as you can see here. So this is the other top cap that the clone comes with. For the Shift bottom feeding RDA, the authentic of course is by Boost Lab. This thing, let me take it out. You can see, meant for a single coil build. So you can actually also do a dual coil build in here, because it's very forgiving. It's just 1 circle right there, your juice well. So when you squonk, the juice will come out from both the holes in here and saturate your cotton. Now when you look at the airflow options themselves, you can see in the top cap, so there's an airflow only on 1 slot for this particular shorter cap, and on the full size or the actual cap itself, you can see the airflow right here. Now the airflow can also be adjusted with the screw on top, right? So you have the airflow, but you can sort of like split the airflow in 2 if you want to, using the adjustment screw. That'll give you an even tighter draw. You see another screw right here. This one actually just serves to hold the top cap in place. It goes into here just push it in. And then when you try to unscrew the RDA, it's easy for you to unscrew it because the smaller screw is already inside right here. There you go, just like that, right? So this is a standard 510 drip tip. This one is Delrin. And forget about using Clapton coils in this one. You can if you want to, but you know it's so short. And you're only going to be having a good vape if you use round wire. For my opinion, if you use Clapton, you're going to get lots of spit back, and also it's probably going to get a bit too warm. But then again, if you love a warm, bordering on hot kind of vape, you may want to experiment with this one, the Boost Lab Shift. This one is a clone. So talking about really tiny atomizers, you may want to take a look at this one for squonking. This is the Origin Little. This, of course, is also another clone, simply because I wasn't too sure what to expect from this, but I'm going to show you anyway, right? So it's a single coil or dual coil RDA, but for doing a dual coil is really difficult on this one. This, if I'm not mistaken, is a 17mm squonk RDA, and you can get a very tight mouth to lung draw with this one. Now you can see the airflow holes inside. There are multiple different sizes of the airflow holes. So all you have to do is really adjust it and get to the airflow that you want. And take this part out, and then you just move the hole to the airflow size that you want. Right? You can see multiple sizes right here, so you can get into a really tight setup if you want, like this, and then lock the airflow in place. Standard 510 drip tip, also this one, but designed to match the rest of it. So if you only care about a mouth to lung vape, then it doesn't really make sense for you to get a 22mm atomizer and reduce it like you saw with the OMYA mods. Instead, something like this, a much smaller diameter, 17mm diameter Origin Little clone, is probably something that you may want to take a look at. I personally don't quite like it. Because I'm not really a mouth to lung vapor, I prefer a proper 22mm RDA with a single coil setup. Alright, so now let's move on to talking about dual coil squonk RDAs. And some of these are going to be 22mm, but you'll also find 24mm. So it's safe to say if it's a 24mm squonking RDA, it's definitely not something that I personally recommend for a single coil build, because I think a 22mm is the best for a single coil build. And you may have noticed the Kennedy RDA placed right here. That was a mistake. I actually meant to get the Tsunami by Geekay. So this one I also covered before in my older squonk RDA review, and I actually don't have the squonk pin right here, but it's basically a very much like inspired by the Kennedy RDA with bottom airflow, Kennedy style airflow as you can see here, velocity style deck, so you can fit two pretty large coils for a dual coil setup, and just replace it with the provided squonk pin. And the Tsunami 24 also comes with the window version, where you actually get sort of a glass piece right here where you can actually see your coil. This is the earlier version, and it works pretty well for a 24mm dual coil squonk RDA. The next 24mm squonk RDA is the Triton RDA. So also comes with a squonking pin, which I don't actually have in here at the moment. And you'll have to take out the regular 510 pin and use the squonking pin. So dual coil also, this one for a squonking setup. And the reason I categorize this as a dual coil is, number one, there is no option for single coil airflow. As you can see, you have two airflow slots. And number two, there's no way for you to reduce the other half of the deck that you don't want to be using. And that's my logic when I classify lots of these things as a dual coil RDA. Doesn't mean you cannot use it as a single coil. It just means that it's not meant for a single coil build, and you probably have less or worse flavor if you do only a single coil build in it. So the Triton RDA, you can also get a clone for this one. Triton RDA, some people love it, some people hate it. It's clamp style deck, as you can see here, 2 screws, and it just clamps everything down. Now you have to run one of your leads to this side, the very edge of it, and that is another issue that you have to actually push this lead back in, or otherwise you end up blocking part or huge part of this area right here that you need to put your wick on. You can also just use only the two clamps, the inner clamps for both the coils, and that will solve the problem of having to push the coils in. It really depends on you and how you want to build. And this is a really good squonk RDA as well. For the airflow, huge airflows that you see here. So for me, a 24mm squonk RDA, I would typically use it on a mechanical squonk mod because I find lots of regulated squonk mods. They are either DNA 75 or DNA 60 or DNA 40. And I don't think there's enough power in them for a dual coil build like this one that you see here. Needs at least 65 watts, and a DNA 75 device is just not going to do 65 watts very well. You also have to factor in the battery life. So for a regulated squonk setup, I prefer single coil 22mm, just in case you're wondering. 24mm, I use it on a mechanical squonk mod. So if you have a more powerful squonk mod, there should be no issue for you to use something like this on it. For me, I don't really have those. Most of my regulated squonk mods are DNA 75. Next, we'll go to the Goon itself, the Goon. So the Goon does not come with a squonking pin. You'll have to get the squonking pin separately. You can get it for 99 cents. It's not an authentic squonking pin. It looks something like this, which I have it on my Goon 22. And it squonks really well, 99 cents. Check the link in the description box below. In my list of squonk RDAs, you'll find a link to where you can go and get the squonk pin as well, gold-plated squonk pin. Now, when you have converted your Goon 24 or Goon 22 into a squonking RDA, it's a whole different beast, right? The 24mm, you can see, clamp style deck. I don't think I need to give you an introduction to the Goon. I'll just tell you what I like about it. I like the airflow of the Goon. And now for the Goon, although you can get it to use the single coil airflow, as you can see, one opening right here, and the problem is the other part will still be pretty much open. If there was something to reduce it, then I would consider it as a good single coil RDA. But for me, the Goon, once you have the squonk pin in it, is a really awesome dual coil squonking RDA. I would consider the 22mm Goon also for my dual coil setup. I'll show you what I have. One of my current favorite dual coil setups and also one of my current favorite 22mm RDA, the Goon 22. The Headley has always been my favorite, all-time favorite for a single coil build, but this one right here is one of my favorites right now. Also, the Goon LP, which actually comes with a squonking pin itself. I told myself to bring it back. It's actually at home. I forgot to bring it back, but I'll show you an empty box. The Goon LP, another very good dual coil squonking RDA. This one right here, the PinDat RDA, also I would consider it for a dual coil squonking RDA. It's actually a squonking RDTA. So you have your airflow ring adjustment, velocity style deck for dual coil build. There is no reducer to block off this part of the chamber if you want to use a single coil build, and that's why I also consider this as a dual coil squonking RDTA or RDA. Right now I have this squonk pin inside, so if I squonk the juice, it will actually go to the juice reservoir right at the bottom. It's about 1.3 mils if I'm not mistaken, or could be 2, and then it wicks the cotton in an RDTA style of wicking or setup, right? So the airflow is very adjustable as well. The PinDat SS drip tank, you can get the full black drip tank. You can also get the different parts here in Ultim, so you can replace the airflow, you can replace the shaft cap in Ultim. I'll consider this also as a very low profile RDA setup. So again, if you want to use a Clapton build or huge wires in here, you have to take note that you may get spit back, and also this part, the tank is going to get very hot if you use a Clapton build. I prefer to use round wire build in the PinDat SS drip tank, especially when it is in squonk mode. Next, I have the Hitch Cigar Maze version 2. The Hitch Cigar Maze version 3, in my opinion, is crap. It doesn't squonk well at all because every time you squonk, your juice just gets into the airflow. But the Maze version 2, if you have a Hitch Cigar VT inbox setup, the included RDA is actually the Maze RDA version 2. Now, the only thing I don't like about the Maze version or Maze RDA version 2 is this top hat kind of design. I hate things like this. In this case, the O-ring is actually pretty good that, you know, it actually stays put. Lots of other similar RDAs I've used over time, it just refuses to stay put, and you have something like this every time you vape. It's always a little bit open, and that's why I hate this kind of setup, this kind of top cap. But the airflow for the Maze is actually bottom airflow, as you can see here, bottom airflow. And I love bottom airflow. I think it gives me better flavor, all other things being equal. So you can see the airflow, dual airflows right here, comes up to your coils. And the quality isn't that great on the Maze, especially for the O-rings. As you can see, over time it does break off. The O-rings do chip off a little bit. But you can get a good, decent size Clapton build in here, 3mm inner diameter. And you can get a really good vape. Now, also included in your kit is going to be this Ultim part for the Maze version 2. And this is how I've always been using it. Because every time I look at this thing right here, the top cap, I just feel like killing myself. So I've never really used this one. And I've only ever used it with the Ultim part. And it does look cool. And the fact that it comes included with the VT inbox kit is really good. Because usually when you buy a squonk setup or squonk kit, the mod is good, but the RDA kind of sucks. And I think part of the reason why the VT inbox was so successful was that the mod itself is good. Some issues, as you can see, always with the magnets, it doesn't seem to align properly. If you can get over that, it's a very good setup. Also listed in my squonk mods list. And the thing with why, as I said, why it was so successful in my opinion is because the RDA, the Maze version 2, is really good. Just look at the bottom of the Maze version 2 RDA, the squonk pin. A few more dual coil 24mm RDAs that I'm just going to show you, but I'm not going to explain that much because you can probably find reviews online. And I don't quite really like using any of the two I'm going to show you here. But it does come with a squonk pin and therefore qualifies it as a squonking RDA, but for a dual coil build. The first is the Geekay Peerless. This is the older version, and now they have a special edition version without the ugly fake Ultim or Fultum top cap. And the way Geek Vape does it is that they just use you as a beta tester, so they just roll this out and then they roll out the actual improved one. Before you even had time to get this in your vape mail, they've already come out with a new version, right? So I'm not a fan of this one. The Peerless, I don't know what, special edition or something like that, looks better. But anyway, it's a 24mm squonkable RDA. And the other one is the Octave Druga. This one is actually pretty good. But I don't like to use it as a squonking RDA per se. Side airflow, you can adjust the airflow like this. The squonk pin is actually in the kit itself. There's spares and I haven't actually taken it out yet. But it's 24mm and you can of course convert it into a squonking RDA. Lots of room to do your build. Very easy to do a build. Actually, you can check my review for the Octave Druga. You can actually just get both coils in using only your fingers. The screws are pretty large. So nothing wrong with this one. I just don't like to use it as a squonking RDA because as you can see, I have lots of other options. Alright, some other older 22mm RDAs I'm going to show you right now that I've covered in my previous video, and they're also going to be for a dual coil setup or dual coil build. The first is this Velocity RDA clone. It does come with a squonk pin, and this one is really cheap. This is not the Tobacco version. If you can get a Tobacco version, it's fine. This one is about $9, I think. Velocity deck, of course, and you squonk right out of the middle. The only problem with the squonk pin is that it's kind of an older design squonk pin. So if you squonk too hard, or when your juice, when your balls only got a little bit of juice left, you actually tend to squonk juice together with lots of air, and then the squonk, when you squonk, the juice will just spit out all the way to the top. but for most of the time it should work pretty well. So the Velocity RDA, of course, is very popular, and one of the reasons is that it has lots of airflow options for you. As you can see, side airflow, Cyclops style airflow on both sides, but also many airflow holes right here, so you can control your airflow to have a little bit airflow come from the side and a lot more from all over the RDA if you want to, or you can shut off all those smaller holes and just go for only the center airflow. Very cheap, as I said. $9 for this clone, or $19 for the Tobacco clone, and it's impossible for you to get a version 1 Velocity RDA today anyway, so this clone actually makes a lot of sense. Now, unlike the newer style Squonking RDAs, you probably don't have much options when it comes to using a drip tip, because this one is not a Goon size drip tip. It's actually a threaded drip tip, as you can see here. It does come in an adapter, so you can use maybe a 510 size drip tip. But as far as using Goon size drip tips, the older one that I'm going to show you here, the older stuff, you're definitely not going to be able to use your Goon size drip tips with them. The next is the Tobacco Velocity Mini clone. Now, like the Velocity clone that I just showed you, this one is also really good, and the main difference is that it's much shorter profile RDA, and the pores are larger than the older version RDA that I showed you before. Velocity Mini, again, there is no authentic Velocity Mini, so this is sort of like a fantasy clone by Tobacco, and it really works well. Notice how huge the drip tip, or the wide bore drip tip is. Again, threaded in, as you can see here, and the threads actually act to lock in the airflow settings. Airflow is very similar to the earlier version Velocity that I showed you. Again, one of my favorite all times, because of the lower profile, and the Velocity style decks really easy to build with. And then you also have the Velocity version 2 clone. So I don't have to show you how it works. It's basically a Velocity inside with very minimal differences. I do explain the differences on my website, on the list on my website. Now, the interesting thing about this one is that it comes with a single piece glass top cap, as you can see here, and it looks really good. Very fragile, but it looks really good. Now, I've received mixed feedback about this version, the Velocity, so-called Velocity version 2 squonk pin, as you can see right there. So this is something that I have changed to a different product, also a Velocity version 2, but probably not the one that you see here. I've changed the link in my list due to those complaints I received. Another dual coil RDA setup. This one is a 22mm. All the others that I just showed you, the velocities, are also 22mm. And this one is my previous best, the Cthulhu Hastur. This is an authentic. Nice short profile, as you can see here. Wide bore Delrin drip tip. And you also have a drip tip adapter. So what's unique about the Cthulhu Hastur is that the airflow, it looks like top airflow, but what happens is that actually the airflow goes from the top and it gets to the bottom through the cyclone ring, as you can see here, right? So air goes from the top, goes at an angle and hits your coil from the bottom, and then it goes up again. Now, because of this little ring right here and the fact that this is a 22mm atomizer, when you put the ring inside, the actual build deck area is reduced by significantly. So it's a dual coil squonking RDA definitely, but the room inside is much smaller. You'll not be able to get a full 22 or 19mm as you would with most other 22mm atomizers. But if you get a really good build in here, the Cthulhu Hastur, the airflow is really unique and one of my previous all-time favorites. I admit I have not been using it for a while now, but I still find it to be really good. I would classify this also as my dual coil squonking RDA because it does not come with a chamber reducer to block off the other side of the deck if I don't want to use it. And here's another interesting dual coil squonk RDA setup, the Snapdragon version 1.5. This one is an authentic and this is pretty pricey, but compared to the version 1, which kind of like, you know, the version 1 was just too complex, overly complicated. If you tighten it too much, it kind of, comes apart. The other side, unnecessarily complicated. This one, they kind of fixed it, so you can get dual coil built in here. And if you notice, there are 3 airflow slots, so you can even get a single coil airflow, right? So all open on this side, on the other sides completely sealed off. But the problem is it does not come with a chamber reducer if you want to use a single coil. But because the poles themselves are so huge, you can actually do it a single coil and get a pretty good vape. I would still classify it as a dual coil squonk RDA for me. But I have tried it with single coil and it does give me a good flavor. Because as I said, the poles kind of like act as a divider to the other side. It comes with a stainless steel cap, and you can get a frosted cap like this. You have to get a frosted cap because the stainless steel cap tends to get hot very fast. Or you can get a cloud cap like this one, and the cloud cap actually has additional airflow on the top, so you can put it in like this and use the side airflow. Goes directly to your coils and it keeps the overall setup much cooler, and you can shut off the bottom airflow like that, so you can just use only the side airflow, or you can even open up the bottom airflow and use both airflows if you want to, but the side airflow you cannot shut it off. This is called the cloud cap, if I'm not mistaken. And the Snapdragon version 1.5 is one of my favorite squonking setups as well. I hated the version 1. The deck was so difficult to build. This one, the deck is also the same, but you can swap it out with the velocity style deck. So in case I didn't mention, the velocity style deck that you see here is a separate purchase. You have to buy it separately and then put or replace the original poles with a velocity style deck, and then it becomes a really good squonk RDA. This one right here, just recently reviewed it for Squonk Week on my channel. It is this Split Eddy or Split R. This one is also a clone, and the tank that you see here is an extension part. It's actually a 22mm RDTA. This part right here becomes a 24mm, but the top part is still 22mm. You have side airflow, and you control the airflow just like this by twisting the top cap. By grabbing hold of the drip tip and twisting it, you can control the airflow. And this is actually I forgot, like I said, it's going to be a bit messed up. I kind of forgot to show you. You can use it as a single coil and dual coil squonk RDTA. I like to use it as a single coil squonk RDTA because it comes with a plug, so I can seal off the other part completely, right? So this one actually should have been included into my single coil RDA. I like using a single coil build on this, not Clapton builds, because it's really small and it gets really hot whenever I use Clapton builds in here. I prefer to use single round wire build for the Split Eddy clone, a Split R clone. Also on the list, as I mentioned, one of the best vapes that I've got for my squonk setup, single coil setup, other than the Headley. So just a few more to show you here. Number one, I'm going to show you the QuadFlex survival kit. This is really unique, and what this one is that it's sort of like different compartments that you can use to assemble 3 different types of tanks, or actually 4. The first is an RDTA, and then if you remove the bottom part and fix the base to the actual main RDA part, you can make it into a normal RDA or a squonking RDA. You see the squonk pin included right here, or you can also convert it into a Nautilus X tank. This, if you haven't got it yet, is something really unique. I do recommend that you get it. It's just kind of fun to, it's like playing with a Lego kit. You actually get to take off many parts, convert it into an RDA, convert it into a Nautilus X tank. It's not really a very good squonking atomizer. I would consider it as a dual coil squonking RDA if you put it in the squonk mode. Not really a very good squonk RDA, but pretty decent. But overall, the value for it, the fun value it's really fun. This one is gonna cost you about 50 USD or so. If you don't like the whole Nautilus X part, that's actually an Aspire Quad. What was it? It's a Quad Pro or Pro Flex or something like that. And that one has the parts to make an RDTA, Squonker RDA and RDA, but the Nautilus X part, so the Coil, Nautilus X Coil, Nautilus X base and Nautilus X drip tips or top part here are not included, and that one is slightly cheaper. And last but not least, I would like to show you this little thing right here, the Fountain Squonk RDA that is actually meant for squonking on a tube mod. Right, so if you thought that you cannot squonk on a tube mod, you are wrong. It's actually just a bottle here, right, a squonk bottle, and you just squeeze the juice up to the RDA section. So if you have it on a Mac mod, this is also 22mm. If you have it on a Mac mod, for example, right, so it becomes a tube squonking RDA. Here's how the deck looks like. And I had to get this just because it's unique. The airflow is from the top, and I haven't really got a very good vape from this one, but I will be hanging on to it because it's really unique. And this one is a clone as well, the Fountain version 2. There's a version 3 out as well, or version 4 or something like that. Sometimes the cloners get a bit too creative, but it holds 5 mils of juice, as you can see here. And if you love using tube mods, Mac mods, and you love the RDA vape that you get, then this is something that you may want to consider. Again, weird, but it's out there, and this is the last squonking RDA that I want to show you today. Alright, so what is my favorite squonk RDAs? If you can guess, can you guess? This one right here, the Goon 22. Goon 22 RDA. Did not come with a squonk pin, but as I showed you in the close-ups, you can get a squonk pin that will fit the Goon 22 and also the Goon 24 from 3F Vape for 99 cents. Why wouldn't you want to get it, right? 99 cents, you can get the same squonk pin, will fit both, and it works really well. And because of that, I would say that the Goon 22 is my favorite squonk RDA, 22mm squonk RDA to use on a regulated mod. So if I use a regulated mod, because the regulated squonk mods that I have is DNA 75, I would use a 22mm. I don't need 24 because I don't need the extra space. 22 is just nice for me. So for 22 is the Goon RDA, and this one right here, the split Eddy R, it's actually with extra X tank right there that makes it larger than 22, but the full set, the original kit is 22 and the top part is 22, so I consider this as a 22mm RDA. Well, it's actually an RDTA. RDTA. So that one I like to do a single coil build and get, you know, a tighter draw. For the Goon I do a dual coil, and the other one that I love for 22mm atomizer squonk RDA is the pin dat. Again, it's a squonk RDTA, and that one I also do a dual coil build, because if you check my review on my channel, I loved it, but I didn't like the fact that it didn't come with a chamber reducer to do a single coil. So with that, I found that if I do a single coil build, the flavor is not as good as if I do a dual coil build. Now with the Goon, I can also do a single coil build in the Goon, but again, it doesn't have the chamber reducer to block off the unused part. But the Goon, because the posts are so high, because the posts effectively just seal off the other side of it, with a single coil build, I do get reasonably good flavor, and I can of course close off the airflow on the other side. But again, I would have much preferred if I was able to find some kind of block to block off the other side for a single coil build. So with the Goon, I always do dual coil. Now for 24mm squonk RDAs, I prefer to use it on a mechanical squonker. My favorites would be the Goon LP. I don't know, man, lots of people don't like the Goon LP. I have no problems with the Goon LP. I think the airflow is good. And for mechanical squonkers, I can get more power out of a single battery, so I can do whatever build I want in here. Of course, warning that mechanical mods, you need to know how to build on a mechanical mod, safety stuff like that. But I use 24mm squonk RDAs on my mechanical squonkers. And other than the Goon LP, my favorite will also be the regular Goon, regular 24mm Goon. There's just something about the Goon, whether it's 22 or 24, that I love and I cannot find anywhere else. It's basically the airflow. It's very hard to explain it because lots of other RDAs have come out since the Goon, with or without squonk pins. They have all this fancy stuff, fancy airflow and stuff going on. Compared to that, the Goon airflow is simple. It's really simple. But I still like the airflow that I get from the Goon. It's smooth and it gives me really good flavor. I don't know, can I explain it? Alright, it's been a long video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Squonk week. This week is Squonk week, so check my channel if this is the first video you're watching for other squonk related stuff, including a very good introduction on squonking and why you may want to consider squonking this year. And of course, on my website and in the link in the description box below, you can find the list best squonking RDAs and also best squonk mod, so stuff that I didn't include here because I don't own it personally, but other people have had very good experiences with it. I also listed on that list. For example, the Pulse bottom feeding RDA by Vapor Trail channel Tony B, right? So the reason I don't have it is because there was way too much hype on it, and I initially had it on pre-order on FastTag, and then the pre-order date came. They postponed to a different date, like 1 week. I had to wait another week or so. I don't know, maybe just too many people were getting it. And so I kind of looked at it and said, wow, I have to wait another week. And by the time I get it, if they stick to the ETA, it'll take me another 2 more weeks to actually get it. And I need at least a few days to review it, a few days to do the video. And by then, you know, it would have been out for more than a month, and I decided not to get it because I already have so many good RDAs. So I don't know, I believe that the Pulse BF can also be a good RDA, but my point here is that if I didn't show you in the close-ups, I probably don't like it or I don't have it. But on the list in my website, I will have the best ones, even those that I have not really personally used, based on other reviews and other people's experiences with those squonk RDAs. That's all for this video, guys. Wokie dokie. No more smoky.
Wow, 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 wow.